The street worker program is actually how UTEC got started. It's the oldest running program at UTEC. It's an outreach program. We target a lot of the hotspots in Lowell, gang hotspots, drug hotspots, places where homeless youth might be hanging out. Build relationships with them, help them out with resources. It's gotten a lot better than it used to be. It's come a long way. Pretty much all of Lowell's, it's thriving right now, but there's still some hotspots. There's still gang activity. In that respect, it's like a lot of other cities, around the world.
If we're really going to say we're going to work with the most high-risk young people, we can't just be sitting and waiting for them to knock on the door.
Right now, we're going to Billerica every week, once a week.
They believe in rehabilitation. And that relationship has been huge for us because we have a lot of guys that we work with. They get caught up doing whatever, and they'll get sent there.
I think if you polled anyone, paying $42,000 a year to incarcerate a young person is probably not on the top of anyone's list to have their tax dollars spent. When you look at young people who leave the juvenile justice system within a period of 3 years, 55% go back into adult prison versus our recidivism rate when it's at 13%.
That's a huge drain on tax dollars that could be going towards helping people with housing, and helping people with food and helping people keep clothing on their backs, helping youth with jobs.
We want to make sure that young people get the chance to transform themselves and transform their community. It also just makes wise economic sense for the health of the community.
Kids at United Teen Equality Center up in Lowell, they're turning gang members into productive citizens through programs like their Culinary Institute. When you talk to them about their success, their enthusiasm to do more is contagious.
I was in a gang. I seen all that stuff that I did, that I didn't want to do, but just because I wanted to be down with my friends, I did it.
Through Workforce, we're teaching them the basic essentials in how to hold down a job, how to show up on time, how to communicate with your colleagues and your supervisor.
We are a triple bottom line business. We want it to be high quality, and we want it to have a very strong business plan that's going to have stable revenue generation. The second bottom line is the benefit we're providing to our young people. And then lastly, we want to make sure the focus of the enterprise fills a need in the community.
These young people aren't going to make it the first time out, and we have to prepare ourselves mentally and physically for that.
Our model is built on multiple years, multiple chances.
Every time somebody leaves UTEC, they always wind up coming back because they know UTEC is going to help them out again.
The main thing that a transitional coach is here for is to just be a support system, which they probably aren't used to.
Conflict resolution, decrease their gang levels, helping them get stable housing.
I really never had this support system. When I first got pregnant, I thought my life was going to end.
I'm here as a TC to motivate that young person in the painting picture where she can see herself, that she can be anybody.
He showed me how to be determined. He showed me how to motivate myself, how to not look on the outside, look on the inside.
We don't want to just be another organization that teaches young people and gets them into college. We don't just get them a job. That's not enough for us. We take the next step. Ultimately, our goal is to bring a young person from the street to the State House. We have a program here that gets young people together and trains them on how to be good grassroots community organizers to address problems in our community, create solutions for them, and then be the owners of the process. So they run their own campaigns.
We talk about the issues that's going around throughout Massachusetts. Even though we're youth, we can still make big changes.
When they're done here at UTEC, wherever they go, they are not going to stop having an amazing impact on the people around them.
It's enormously important for you to tell your stories. Your story is a powerful story. It's about hope and perseverance. It's about not giving up. That transformation is its own energy for other people still waiting for their transformations. But all around this city and all around this Commonwealth in this country, people are in search of a reason to hope. And you are that reason to hope.
I would like to think of ourselves as possibly the last place where a young person feels failed, a place where young people think, I tried A, I tried B, I tried C, and UTEC is a place where I can try and succeed.
I've been involved in, our gangs and out of gangs. I did nearly 6 years in prison. The hard way to learn, is not always the best way. They don't need to be in prison 5, 6 years to become a better person.
Even though I dropped out at 12, had no education for 4 or 5 years, I went to that GED room and showed them that I still got it. I'm not gonna let nobody put me down, anything put me down. I'm just gonna move forward and just put my eyes in the sky, reach for the top.
It is really possible to create an environment where young people who have felt neglected or forgotten, who some people might say are too far gone or too old for change, it's entirely possible to create a place where such transformation is possible.
So again, we've been around for 19 years, but we're learning every day. And so I know everyone in this room has an idea, may know somebody. Have you thought about this? We're always open, we're always learning. So our doors are always open for partnership. And so I want to say thank you. Tonight, it's all about the young people. I'm handing over the mic. My role is very simple. I have been asked to hype up the young people who are a little nervous. They're a little nervous, so our job is to welcome them, give them some energy, and then to give the energy to the candidates. Make sense? So our candidate forum's a little bit different. We pride ourselves in bringing the highest energy in a little twist. So are we ready? Oh, so quiet. The MCs, Tom, are you ready back there? Are the MCs ready? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, there's always a little theme. There's always a little theme to our forums. So tonight, I am so honored to introduce 4 MCs, along with all the other young people who've been helping with the planning process. And a round of applause for all of our young people. Yes. So these MCs are ready. Are you ready? Yeah. Are you ready, MCs? UTEC has done 8 city council candidates forums, 1 gubernatorial forum. Tonight is the first ever congressional forum. It is my honor to introduce the 4 MCs for tonight. Are you ready to reflect upon your civic values? We are ready to reflect upon our civic values. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Are you ready? In the white corner, out of Lowell, Massachusetts, a 5'10" sophomore, Duke. In the blue corner, at a lean dream, 173 pounds. Can I hear flex? Yeah! Woo! In the red corner, at 173 pounds, trim at the weight room, here he is, a junior from Lowell, via Hartford, Connecticut, David! Yeah! And our last MC for the evening, are you ready? Tom, are you ready? From Lawrence, Massachusetts, a 183-pound senior, Jefferson! Jefferson! Ladies and gentlemen,
Congressional Candidate Forum! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2018 UTEC Congressional Candidate Forum. My name is Jefferson.
My name is Flex.
My name is David.
My name is Duke. Before we begin, the candidates, we do ask that you please refrain from the applause and booing to help us keep the time. Just so you know, there are bathrooms outside to the back.
We'd also like to say thank you to our partners at LTC for filming tonight. LTC is a great partner, and they'll air this event on television up until the primary on September 4th, and we'll get the video online too.
Now let's welcome all our candidates. DJ, hit that what? Music. In alphabetical order, we have first Jeffrey Ballinger. Second, Alexander Chandler. And Bees Dawes.
Rufus Gifford. Leonard Golder. Daniel Coe. Barbara the Italian.
Bopa Malone. Juana Matias. Michael Mullen. And Lori Chahan. Cool. All right, let's give a warm welcome to all of our candidates. Tonight is going to be fun for all of us, but to make things run smooth, we're going to have to go over a few rules. We are going to ask series of questions. Some are open-ended. For those you get 60 seconds to respond. Other questions are only yes or no, so please one word only. At the end, you'll each get 60 seconds for closing statements.
Each question round, we are going to randomly choose a candidate to go first by pulling a name from the fishbowl. Every round, the question will always pass to the person on your left.
For those of you who know about our forms, you know we like to have fun with keeping time. In the front row, we have our lovely Paula. Can you stand up, please? She will be keeping track of our time. Instead of a bell, if you run over your time, you'll get this.
All right. That being said, be careful, first of all. That being said, we're going to hop into our first question. Everybody ready? Cool. Okay. Congress is considering the adoption of comprehensive criminal justice reform to focus on getting better recidivism outcomes. If you are elected and you get to lead on any criminal justice reform-related issue, what issue would you lead on and why? You got 60 seconds, starting with Daniel Coe.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for having us tonight. I love the music. I was hoping we'd have a dance-off before we started the issues section, but maybe that's for later. Exactly. We need to finally end the senseless war against marijuana, once and for all. It has held back people for a long time. It has disproportionately affected people of color for far too long. And it's time we finally got some sense and had a federal legalization of marijuana once and for all. That's where the future is. It will actually help us address the opioid epidemic, And it's time for us to be able to do that so that we finally end this senseless war. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Barbara L'Italian. I'm not Ann Kirkpatrick. I just want to state that for the record. You know, I would like to go down to Washington and do exactly what we did here in Massachusetts, which was to pass sweeping criminal justice reform, to eliminate the school-to-prison pipeline, to decriminalize minor infractions for marijuana and other substances. I want us to make sure that we are not locked into mandatory minimums. I think that we need to do away with those as we did here in Massachusetts. I think we can and will do better. I think we should not be engaging kids in the criminal justice system as young as age 7. I think that's outrageous and voted against that. We wanted to raise that in the Senate. And I also believe, and I'm really grateful for the UTEC folks who came to my office, because I'm a state senator, over the last 6 years to talk about expungement. I think that's critically important that we do that.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, UTEC, for putting this on. I really appreciate the work that you do with young adults in our community, and it's because of you, young adults are thriving. So just like a lot of the young adults here, I came here as a refugee, and I was able to have organizations like UTEC, not UTEC, but similar, like Girls Inc., that helped me to become who I am today. And because of that, I've been able to achieve my American dream. And I truly believe that everyone can as well if we get rid of, you know, instead of having criminal justice system, we should have restorative justice where people, young adults, have programs like UTEC and Girls Inc. to be able to help them, to mentor them, and as opposed to continuing them to continue to be in prison and making profits and things like that. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to UTEC for convening us tonight. Criminal justice reform is something I'm very passionate about. We need to repeal federal mandatory minimum sentences. We need to get rid of for-profit prisons. We need to have actual robust rehabilitative programs in our prison systems. Yes, we passed a great bill in Massachusetts, but there was more we could do. We invest about $50,000 a year to incarcerate people, and when they're about to be released, we spend no money to ensure that they have access to substance abuse services, access to job training, education services, and it's unfortunate because yes, the rates of incarceration in Massachusetts have gone down, but they have disproportionately gone up for communities of color. And I've seen friends, family members go to jail, come out, and have a life sentence that does not allow them to reintegrate into society successfully. And in order to have a true comprehensive immigration reform, we really need to look at things not just from the court system, but what happens after release. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Mullen. I'm an independent candidate for Congress. Thank you, UTEC, for hosting this. The issue that I'd like to focus on is removing the profit motive in the criminal justice system. Having private prisons is no place. This is not an area that business should be doing. This is an area for government. I think the same is true for things like bail, things like probation. Today, people are ending up in debtor prisons, essentially. Towns, jurisdictions are getting revenue from this, and that's not what it's for. So that's the area that I would focus on. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi there, I'm Lori Trahan. Thank you so much for having us tonight. Like so many of my colleagues said, we need to end mandatory sentencing for non-violent drug offenses. I'll talk about something a little bit different that hasn't been mentioned. If we want to decrease recidivism, we have to end the perpetuation of, you know, continually bringing up background like banning the box. The common application has already gone forth with banning the box so that we don't ask about criminal history in the admissions process, nor should we do it for job applications. You know, famously this week we've got California inmates in the correctional facility fighting wildfires, and they might not be allowed to become a firefighter when they get out of prison. That's just wrong, and we need to end that practice.
Hi, I'm Jeff Ballinger. Thanks very much to UTEC for having us all here this evening, and thanks for you coming out. I am speaking a lot on the trail about job creation, but really understanding what the jobs of the future will be. I'm in favor of restarting the Division of Economic Research at the National Labor Relations Board, because it was shut down in the 50s during the Red Scare. But we really need to know what jobs are coming 2 years out, and 5 years out, and 10 years down the road. I've lived outside the U.S. for about 15 years. I've seen where businesses do this. Businesses can anticipate what they need in their workforce, but in America, it's left to chance. Our businesses are short-term oriented. We really need to know what job skills are needed so we can help our youth train for those jobs, and that will lower the recidivism rate more than anything if there are good jobs to go into.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Alexandra Chandler. I want to thank you all for being here, for your service to democracy. I want to thank Al the T-Rex, because his service will be greatly appreciated all night. When I look at this issue, I agree with Dan that going after the decriminalization of marijuana at the federal level has to be the #1 priority because of the disparities in the application of our marijuana laws to people of color, to poor people. But not just any bill will do. I will support Senator Booker's Marijuana Justice Act, which includes expungement. So we're not just going forward doing the right thing, but restoring the ability of people to participate in their communities. But the honorable mention goes to reducing, and I would say eliminating cash bail. I'll support Senator Sanders' effort in that regard. But overall, to make progress, we have to look at this as an ecosystem. Criminal justice requires racial justice, social, and economic justice. So I'll be looking at ways to help people raise their families.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Everyone here? All right, great. I'm Beach Doss. I'm the only one on this panel who's actually sat on a federal court. I was the law clerk to the Chief Justice, a Chief Judge of the District of Maryland. I did a lot of drug sentencing work. We have to expunge the records of a lot of African Americans who have been imprisoned. I'll tell you a story quickly. Frank Dickerson, someone I sentenced to 30 years in prison. My judge, who is a conservative Republican judge, says, what can we do to downward depart from the federal sentencing guidelines? At the time, nothing. We need to allow federal judges to depart for equitable reasons on sentencing. That's #1. #2, private prisons have got to be out in state courts, and we got to make sure federally under the 14th Amendment we do that. So that's what I would do. I'm going to avoid the T-Rex. We'll talk later.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rufus Gifford. Thank you so much for UTEC for doing this amazing event. Very different from the other forums we've done, but I expect nothing less. It's fantastic. The answer to the question is mandatory minimums for me. It truly, obviously, it disproportionately penalizes people of color and people of lesser economic means, and we just got to do away with it. But ultimately, I really think, and obviously that's going to be a little repetitive based on what's been said before, but I think we got to hammer home that point. Secondarily, you can't take away the value of community when you come to criminal justice reform more broadly, as far as I'm concerned. The federal government has an enormous role to play to help organizations, frankly, like the one we are sitting in right now, like UTEC, continue to provide the services that they provide to the community. And as far as I'm concerned, that kind of holistic approach to criminal justice reform is what we should be focusing on as well. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Len Golder, and I look at the whole criminal justice system from two perspectives. I used to be a social worker, and I've also done criminal defense work. And I agree with everything that everybody has said up to now, but two things I emphasize. One is we've got to get rid of the so-called crimes against oneself, because our prisons are overloaded with people who basically have committed the crime of drug possession. Those are people who need treatment, not imprisonment.
And the other issue is that we got to make sure that when we do pass laws that involve criminal penalty, that they're colorblind and that they don't disproportionately affect people based on economic status.
That was wonderful. Next question. There's a lack of reliable funding for reentry services both pre and post-release in state and federally, particularly with young adults with high recidivism rates. If elected, would you support and fight for new funding mechanisms to support reentry efforts at UTEC? Yes or no? Starting with Lori Trahan.
Oh, this is a yes or no question? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
100%.
Yes.
Okay. A majority of the young adults at UTEC have struggled with some form of mental health needs that have led some to struggle with substance abuse and dealing with suicidal thoughts, particularly those who have been incarcerated. Just last year, UTEC lost multiple youth to overdoses and suicide. If elected, what role could Congress play in building more support mechanisms for young people like us? 60 seconds, starting with Juana Martiz.
Great. I think, yes, that we next need to recognize that not only when people are in prison are they suffering from mental health issues, but also at the arraignment process, or really assessing people for the mental health concerns they have, the substance abuse concerns they have. And as a state and as the federal government, we need to invest more money to ensure that we're assessing people's issues and so that we're resolving their real root that's causing them to continue to perpetuate and get involved in crime. And I think also, yes, we need to make sure that our prison system has the resources, the caseworkers, the mental health providers within the prison that can assess what people are going through, and making sure that even once they are released, that we have long-term caseworkers that are helping these individuals maintain their job, continue to combat that substance abuse that they're struggling with, get access to education and job training opportunities. These are all of the comprehensive things we need to do if we really want to give people an opportunity to re-enter successfully into our societies. And until we do that, we don't have a criminal justice system that actually is trying to resolve our issues. Thank you.
My wife is a social worker, works in the area of child abuse, and they take a multi-pronged approach where you have your legal professionals, you have your social workers, you have your mental health professionals, and I think you need that in this situation as well. So I think we need to publicize that, show the evidence base behind it, and then secondarily, I don't think we can treat mental health separate from physical health. I think any healthcare reform needs to include mental health as a key component to that. And as a society, I think we're making steps in that direction, but I think we have a long way to go and need to have that as a holistic part of our healthcare system.
I'm going to talk about opioid addiction because I think it goes hand in hand. Lowell, Lawrence, Haverhill, disproportionately access to Narcan and more treatment and rehabilitation services for those who are struggling with addiction. I'd also bring early education into our schools so that we can prepare our young people for the pitfalls of addiction. You know, the state of Massachusetts has done a fair job at instituting prescription caps and treatment, but the federal government has not done their part in stepping up. Finally, we have to hold the pharmaceutical companies accountable for their role in the opioid epidemic, as well as, the tobacco industry, where they over-marketed their addictive products to our young people, and the same thing is happening today. And as a member of Congress, I will go down to take them head on.
We are not. We get the Democratic Party back from the corporate interests. Just a year ago, 60% of House Democrats voted for a defense bill $57 billion more than Trump was asking for. Now, this has got to tell you only one thing, that the industry, the lobbyists, the defense industry had those people in their pockets. So we've got to cut that defense budget, and what are we going to do if we don't? We're never going to help people the way they need to be helped, because this is a discretionary pie. What you give to the Pentagon, you're taking away from all kinds of social benefits. We also need to have a financial transaction tax in America, and we have to fully fund the IRS. For every 45 cents you spend on the IRS, you get $100 in revenue. And since 2010, we've just been cutting the number of people at IRS.
To really build support mechanisms, you need to look at this as a whole ecosystem. And the number one thing that I would see is that for people to have access to the best mental health provider that's best for you, whether it's mental health or your addiction treatment, and it's all integrated together. And then within the prison system, that's where federal law comes in, and we need to establish a very clear statutory right to appropriate treatment. And that also involves getting rid of the private prisons, because we can't have the profit motive get in the way of having the best caregivers in place. And this disproportionately affects communities of color, where there's a lack of cultural competency in the providers, and LGBT people. I'm a transgender woman myself, and I can tell you, I had mental health issues as a youth, and I had no idea how to get to the provider really helpful for me. So that's how I approach it. I'm not going to get T-Rexed.
You know, I think we have to view these things as very personal, right? Our healthcare system has impersonalized a lot of these decisions. So fundamentally, we had a drug overdose in our campaign, our office. Having to make a phone call to a father to say, we just found your son overdosing and taking him to the hospital. It makes you realize that this is an issue that affects all of us and it happens everywhere. And fundamentally, that's what we need to realize. The support systems are not in place in our society throughout the whole scale, meaning from early childhood, mental health, to drug prevention. All of those things need to be augmented and improved. And so that's, I think, the fundamental issue that we're facing. All of us, I think, have similar prescriptions in terms of funding, but I think those are the changes we need to make philosophically.
Thanks. My answer to the question, long-term, big picture, has got to be Medicare for all. We need to combine mental health services, services associated with addiction, with the larger healthcare industry in the United States. And to me, the only way to effectively deal with this would be to push for a Medicare for all type system nationally. Now, that is an ultimate goal, and that's going to take a few years, and we can't just wait for that to happen, right? So we need to continue to work with what we got. So I was part of the team that helped pass Obamacare back in 2009 and 2010 in the early years of the Obama administration. Now, the expansion of Medicaid was actually very, very important to helping continue to treat mental health. We now still have states that have not adopted the expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare, and of course Obamacare is under attack. So the new Congress has got to do everything in its power to strengthen Obamacare, continue to expand Medicaid, and ensure people have
We need a strong mental health system, and that means strong community mental health centers, substance abuse counselors, and drug treatment centers. And most important, we need good outreach to schools, because that's often where problems arise. So we need people in the school system who can identify problems and catch them at an early stage. And yes, I agree, we also need a strong healthcare system that pays for and allows and doesn't stigmatize the whole issue of mental health.
Thank you. A lot of great issues have been brought up, but I agree with Lenny's last point. We need to finally end the stigma around mental health in our society. If you break your arm, someone signs your cast. If you've got an issue mentally, people ostracize you. That is wrong. People all see this world differently. Each one of you in this room sees this world differently, learns this world differently, and loves differently, and we need to respect that diversity. I would fight for funding for the Stop the Stigma program in Massachusetts to supplement it. I grew up with a learning disability. I would take medication in the bathroom stall because I was too afraid someone would find out that I had a mental issue. We can't have that in our society anymore. We need to be comfortable with mental health so people feel comfortable to come forward, realize that they're not crazy, but they're just someone who sees the world differently and that everyone does, and that's the beauty of America. Thank you.
I look at this through so many lenses. I'm the mother of a child with autism who struggles with depression and anxiety. 2 of his friends died of overdoses in the month of April. I look at it as a former case manager and understand that mental health parity, while on the books, both in our state and federally, has never been realized. There is absolutely stigma associated, and we need to do more. And we do need to do this through a Medicare for All program, and I'm proud to be the person on this stage that's been endorsed by MassCare, because I fought for health insurance coverage for my son and many others who were struggling and not getting treatment for what they needed. And I do think we see an awful lot of self-medication going on with opioid abuse for folks who feel like they have very dim prospects. They don't have a job, they may have ended up incarcerated, and we have to stop the issue of segregating and putting people into isolation. It's a real problem, and we have to get our hands around it.
So I do believe in the Medicare for All system and addressing the opioid epidemic. But just like a lot of the young adults here, I'm a product of programs that work because of the fact that growing up I had these issues. And as I mentioned earlier, because of Girls Inc. and what they did for me, I was able to overcome these things. So what I would do in Congress is to advocate for funding that support programs like yours and in partnership with other programs to make sure that we create jobs for you guys, to make sure that you feel hopeful instead of hopeless, that you're going through all these issues. And a lot of times, it's just having role models and mentors being around. So for me, growing up, even though I experienced all these things, I had role models and mentors that helped me to overcome it. They helped me to get into school where I can have a good education, and then I was able to have a good job as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. To lighten the mood a little bit after that, we got a special question for all of you tonight. Yeah, I'm just gonna ask it. All right, so if your campaign had a mascot, right? What would that mascot be? One word starting with Alexandra Chandler.
Turtle, slow and steady wins the race.
Dark horse. I think I'm just gonna go with my dog, Argus, because he's the sweetest.
Gee, you took my answer away. Mine's a lab hound mix. Maybe that counts for something.
I'm digging that T-Rex over there.
I'm going to say Rosie the Riveter, and I know I'm aging myself, but for those of you who are young, look it up.
I say lion just because I'm a Leo.
Not really a mascot, but the scales of justice, just because that's what involved me to get into public service, addressing inequality. Thank you.
Badger, independent, and tenacious.
Duke, raise your hand. Duke, you're my mascot.
Wow, buddy. A leghorn chicken. That was complicated.
So at UTEC, we also focus on learning about a wide range of social justice topics. Racism is still a topic that we often discuss. What policy idea would you advocate for that could make the 3rd district the most anti-racist district possible? Starting with Michael Mueller or Michelle? Michael.
I think it would be immigration reform. I think today immigration is used as something that you can point to people and it's a problem because it's that group, it's that group. And I think it ends up being very divisive. So I think we need to solve that. I think we need a program that provides a path for citizenship. I think it needs to have clear enforcement go forward, and I think it needs to be modernized. But I think if we can address that and not have that as an issue that can be used to divide us, that will be something that will help bring people together and help solve some of the things on the racial front. Thank you.
As someone who grew up in Lowell, I saw the impact of community policing in the city of Lowell. It strengthens the bonds of trust between neighborhoods and a community and the police department. I think that there's a lot more that Congress can do. I think that we need to support legislation to end racial profiling. I think we need to set up national guidelines on the issue of force by police officers. And look, I think we need to give police officers the tools and the resources they need, state-of-the-art training and escalation practices and bias. That would be something I'd like to work on so that it's contagious across the entire district.
I think we really have to address this policing issue. It's just unacceptable that we have young black men often targeted and harassed by the police, and I'm sympathetic with what police have to deal with day in and day out, but I grew up in a pretty racist place. Gary, Indiana was second only to Newark and in terms of white flight. That means people leaving the neighborhood when it's changing. And it affected me deep down inside. I really feel like we have to address this issue seriously, and we have to talk honestly about what didn't work. The Federal Housing Authority, 50 years old this year, did not work. It was not enforced. So unless we get serious and tell our children about the failures of our government, we can't just go on and say, oh, we fixed that. We passed a law 50 years ago. We didn't fix it.
I've been the vice president of PTA at a Title I school in Washington, D.C. that my son went to. It was 90% students of color, and about 10% were in transitional housing or homeless. And those Title I funds, the before care, after care, better instructional care, better instructional quality, and those services, it's not just about helping those kids. It's about the parents. It's about the whole family. Because that's nutritional assistance for those kids, that's an ability for those parents and those relatives to hold down a job, to be involved in their communities, and to rebuild their lives. That reduces recidivism if that's an issue, and it really just creates that ecosystem that I talk about, because anti-racism means racial justice, it means economic justice, and it's great on so many levels.
You know, I grew up as a brown kid in a white neighborhood. So racism, race relations, they're very personal to me. We've come a long way. When my mom started teaching at the University of Lowell in 1972, she used to wear a sari to work every day. And so back then it wasn't that we celebrated diversity, we tolerated it. Today we're getting a little closer to the celebration of our differences, but we're not there yet. So I think we have to, at the federal level, 1, celebrate diversity through our immigration policy. 2, strengthen federal hate crime legislation. We've taken a step back under this administration, and we need to take those steps back. But I think fundamentally and philosophically, we must celebrate diversity. It is the strength of America that makes this, the diversity picture so beautiful.
I support all the policy initiatives that have been put forward so far, because I think ultimately from a policy standpoint you do need to deal with these issues of economic, social, racial justice. But I'm actually not going to focus on the policy. I'm actually going to focus on the cultural phenomenon, because if you are going to weed out racism from a society, you can't legislate your way out of it. Honestly, what you need to do is invest in organizations like the one we are sitting in right now. You need to invest in the strength of community. You need to get people sitting around a table, having a dialogue, putting forward their issues, looking each other in the eye, talking about the issues that concern them. Building up community organizations, creating community organizers, just like UTEC does. That is what we have to do. And frankly, and the federal government does have a role in providing funding and building these organizations up.
All of these answers are good. I would start with schools, because that's where we start with young people. We need schools that are diverse. We need schools that teach the acceptance of diversity. And at the same time, as young people grow older, they need educational opportunity in terms of their advancement in life and what they're able to do. And I think if we can provide those opportunities and teach those values, I think we'll go a long way to reducing the kinds of problems we have in society.
Thank you. Two things. One, I don't believe that you can successfully address issues of diversity if you don't have diverse voices at the table. Congress historically has been overly Caucasian, vastly underrepresented with regard to diversity, and we need to send more diverse voices to Washington. We also need to make sure we're hiring people of color in positions where they can lift other people up. I was proud to be Chief of Staff under Mayor Marty Walsh, where half of his cabinet was people of color. And if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, my staff will be the most diverse staff that you have ever seen in Congress. Second, and perhaps just as importantly, we have a racist as President of the United States. We need to impeach this president who is setting an example that it's okay to go on Twitter and put racial slurs on there to stoke the flames of what we saw in Charlottesville. If we impeach President Trump, I think we make a lot of racial progress in this country, and I fully support that.
I think we have to look at education as a huge issue. We need a strong, single public education system that is fully funded. Education is the great equalizer in life. It brought my dad from a triple-decker in Lawrence to be able to get a college education through the GI Bill after serving in World War II. And it really altered the course of the life of myself and my 7 siblings. So I think a strong public education, not charter education, not voucher education, but public education from universal pre-K, K through 12, and extending so that people can get a college education and be prepared to meet the 21st century economy. So I think that is the single most transformational thing we can do, is reject the tax cut that was given to the top 1% and reapportion money towards a strong and unified public education system.
So I would take a holistic approach to this. I don't think there's any one thing that's going to solve this. I have my daughter sitting here, and you know, it's really nice because she goes to a public school system where there's so much diversity. And when she talks about her friends, like, we love the fact that it's just names. She doesn't go into color, and I love that. And we teach that at home, and that it starts there first. And second, you know, I do agree with Dan in the way of our president. I'm afraid when the TV goes on and he's talking, I get her out, because I don't want her to hear the things that he is saying, because it's not right to have our leaders saying these things. So it starts with our home, our leaders, and then education. Education is key, because you know, if you have an opportunity to go to school and to be able to, I'll finish that after.
Look, there is not one thing that's going to address the institutional racism we continue to see being perpetuated. I come from a community, the community of Lawrence, which I have the honor and pleasure of representing in the Massachusetts State House. And I saw for generations how the public school system failed thousands and thousands of students. And we have privileged politicians who talk about public schools and who weren't there ensuring that our students, students of color, who come from poor working class households, had access to the same academic opportunities than other students across the state. 60% of students in this state, Massachusetts, which is considered the #1 state in public education in this country, 60% of color students, African American and Latino, cannot read a third grade level. We have one of the highest achievement gaps in this country. So I think the most important thing we need to talk about is education equity. And it's really easy when you come from a privileged community to talk about the public schools when you're not there seeing certain public schools like the ones in Lawrence where we had receivership in place, where students did not get the education they deserved, not move ahead and get what they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. You can back up now. All right, this next question is actually a pretty deep question, and it's something I'm currently going through. I am currently struggling with finding a stable housing, and so are many other young adults at UTEC. If elected, including funding, how would you address this situation that is so real in the Merrimack Valley for young adults? 60 seconds to respond, starting with Jeffrey Ballinger.
Thank you. Well, it has to do with what you're doing right here at UTEC. I feel at home here because I'm a lifetime organizer, and what you got to do is organize. We have not had unions free to organize in this country since 40 years ago when I tried to organize in the J.P. Stevens campaign, the Norma Ray story. I was on that campaign. I couldn't go to a worker's house and say, the federal government protects your right to organize, because I didn't believe it anymore. We tried to fix the labor law reform in 1977. It was filibustered for 5 weeks by the conservatives. They've only made things worse since then. They say regulation is bad, government's bad, people getting together is bad. Where's our response? Our response, the Democrats have been bought by the same corporate interests. They're raising money from the same banks and insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. We can't raise that voice because we're bought and paid for. I want my party back.
I look at the affordable housing crisis in this district first from the funding perspective. That what we need to do is we need to get enhanced HUD funding, including Section 8 funding, because wait lists for affordable housing are 10 years in some of our communities. And then what we also have to do is make it so that big developers don't have to be part of the solution when these grants come in. I've been talking to community organizations in Lawrence and other places where you have to partner with a big developer to carve out a certain segment of the housing that you can then make affordable. We need to find a way for the municipalities themselves, for smaller scale organizations, similarly situated to UTEC, who can then access these funds themselves so that then this housing can go right in the communities that need it, not marketing to those wealthy that will also be part of those developments. And then we have to look at transportation so that we can build out housing in lower cost areas that then connect people to jobs and to healthcare and to childcare. Again, it's all an ecosystem.
You know, we have to look at the systemic issues as to why this is happening. Gentrification and the success of the university has really helped this problem. The university's tuition right now is $28,500 a year. If you can afford that in Lowell, that's the reason we're kicking out a lot of people who can't afford their housing anymore. I live a couple of blocks from here, and I'm sad to say I'm part of the problem. My rents rival those I would pay in Boston. So we don't have the jobs to support that kind of cost structure, yet we're forcing people to do just that. It's not fair, and we need federal grants that will support housing supports that allow young people to get a start in life without having to suffer and face homelessness.
One of the things that really frustrates me about the Trump administration is his appointment of his cabinet. We have an education secretary who seems to hate public education. We used to have an EPA administrator who seemed to hate the environment. And we have a HUD secretary in Ben Carson that seems to not care about this issue, something that falls squarely in his lap. And since the onset of the Trump administration, we have seen affordable housing programs slashed. Since, actually, it was just today that Secretary Carson overturned, I believe, civil rights ordinances, Obama-era civil rights ordinances in housing alone. This is something that we just simply need to turn around. At a time where this crisis is incredibly real, the federal government should be investing more in affordable housing programs, not slashing them. Thanks.
I have over 12 years' experience on a planning board in my town, so I'm very familiar with some of the problems that we have in dealing with housing, especially in terms of creating diverse housing. And one of the problems is if we live in an area that's very highly desirable, people want to live here, and that creates more demand and higher rents and not enough supply. So we really do need to create a greater supply of housing. And we can't go back to the era of the 1950s when we built public housing. Public housing doesn't work. We've seen that. So we have to require people who are building private housing to set aside more housing that's affordable. Like in my town, for example, every 5 houses that you build, 1 of them has to be affordable. What my town considers affordable, I don't consider affordable. So that what has to be done is the affordability rate has to be lower, but it has to be incentivized to create more housing and more affordable housing so that we are not shutting people out of where they can live.
We should all agree that no matter who you are and how much money you make, that you deserve a home that is comfortable and affordable. That's how we should all start. This campaign, we've gone around and talking to housing experts in Haverhill and Lowell and Fitchburg. And the one commonality that everyone says is a problem is what Lenny just referred to. It's supply. So we need to increase the supply of housing in a way that's inclusive. So how do we do that? When I was Chief of Staff to Mayor Walsh in Boston, we were able to create more housing by simply working closely with the public land that the city owns on itself and to be able to put it out to bid in exchange for affordable development in those areas. There's opportunities throughout this district to do that. Secondly, there's a huge opportunity with the new Opportunity Zones program at the federal level. It will allow us to build more supply of housing, it will allow us to build affordable housing and increase that supply so that when people come to our government agencies and they need that housing, we're able to give it to them. That's what we need to work on the federal level. We need to do it right now.
I will say, representing the city of Lawrence, that housing is one of the most vexing issues I deal with every day in my Senate office. We have long wait lists. We do help with writing grants and helping to access historic tax credits to convert some of our mills into housing. But it's disheartening when 700 people show up for 70 apartments that are beautiful, and it's great for those 70 people. But clearly, supply is an issue. But we need a whole range of housing. We need starter housing for people. We need apartments for young people that have just graduated from college and can't afford a home. We need options for adults who are downsizing and maybe want to stay within their community. We need a whole range of housing. A lot of what's being produced right now is apartments. I think we also ought to have single-family homes, not unlike what happened after World War II. People want to live in their own single-family home, and I think we need to find ways to create those opportunities as well.
So first of all, I'm very sorry for what you're going through, that you're struggling with this, because no one should be, I'm sorry about that, and no one should be going through that. And, you know, obviously this is a major issue in going around the district. This is one of the things that I hear a lot is affordable housing. Ordinary people aren't getting access to just normal living. And basically, I think, you know, in Massachusetts, it's right now there's over 17,000 people are homeless. This is up, in the past 10 years due to no fault of their own. Basically, unpaid medical bills, loss of jobs. So I think it's important to create jobs and make sure that people have at least the minimum wage to be able to afford their afford housing and food and.
After immigration calls in my office, the most amount of calls we get are in regards to housing and housing needs. One-bedroom apartment that would have cost you 4 years ago about $900 is going for $1,500 in the city of Lawrence. And I think what we need to look at is the fact that federally we've been disinvesting in federal housing grants every year. And we need to do more reinvesting. But I think we also need to look at where we're setting up these affordable housing units, right? We can't continue to segregate poor people to live in a certain community. We need to create affordable housing in other communities, change our zoning laws, so that what happens is that, you come to Lawrence and you build 10 affordable housing units. The people that live there are largely poor, low income. That means that our tax base is not supplemented by these taxpayer dollars. Our schools are being affected by this. So I think we need to look at the way that we do federal housing policy and make sure it's equitable and across district lines. And then we also need to talk about, like Senator Barbara L'Italian mentioned, housing. Giving people access to home ownership. Those are things that I would fight for in Washington. Thank you.
First, follow up what Rufus said. We need to enforce the laws that are on the books today. So we need to enforce the Fair Housing Act. I think that's a start. Second, we need to do what Dan talked about. Look for opportunities where the government can step in and provide some of those opportunities to provide swaps, to provide those places where you can partner with the local communities, because that's where the zoning laws are. That's a lot of the place where we're losing our ability to build stock. And last, I'd like to build off of what Jeff said. One of the reasons I'm running as an independent is because I think the whole political and electoral system that we have today doesn't work and is too tied to special interests. The real estate lobby is a big lobby. They have a lot of influence with the elected officials in this country. I think we need to add transparency to that. I think we need to put reasonable limits in place. I think we need to repeal Citizens United and enforce the transparency and disclosure laws that we have on the books today. Thank you.
The downside of going last is that everything's been said. Those were all great ideas, and I agree with so many of them. You know, traveling around the district, I saw some great models that I would like to see spread across this district, where public and private partnerships with nonprofits are using municipal land to increase affordable housing stock. But look, the cost of living has gone up. The price of housing has gone up. What's really daunting is that wages have stagnated. So I'm going to take a second just to talk about more innovative paths to education that get people into good-paying jobs, get them the skills they need by promoting trades and technical training, community college programs that get our young people not just to college, not just in that college lane where they can, you know, bank on a lot of debt, but also into our community college programs that get them a credential that they need to get a good paying job in our economy and afford a home. No T-Rex. That for sure is coming out. Where'd he go?
Kind of bad news, the battery in T-Rex's costume.
That's great news.
He's extinct now.
So we got a special question for you guys. Please welcome up one of the UTEC's young father who will ask our next question. Welcome up, Brian.
First things first, I'm gonna be 110% honest with you guys. I'm facing my biggest. Alright, first things first, I'm facing my biggest fear right now, which is speaking in front of all you wonderful people. But I'm trying not to let it get to me. Effective anti-poverty work requires a multi-generational approach that we call the 2Gen. There are federal programs that help parents get to work and their kids into school. But they often siloed and not communicating with one another, which makes it hard for them to fund programs like UTEC. If elected, would you be in support of advancing a 2Gen strategy that includes the formation of a new national 2Gen commission? Yes or no, starting with Beach Dice. That's how you pronounce it?
You did a great job.
Thank you.
You faced your fears well. Yes, we need to eliminate silos in federal programs, so yes, absolutely.
I love that idea. Absolutely.
It's a great formula for success to have parents and children working in partnership.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I was asleep at the wheel. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I would go beyond that as well and working with different organizations in terms of other immigrant communities to make sure that they're aware and they get the information as well.
Absolutely.
Wholehearted yes.
Yes.
Don't need a mic for yes. Yes.
All right. In 60 seconds or less, we'd like to give you your closing remarks. Please use this time to make your final pitch to the UTEC community about why you deserve our vote. Starting with Bopa Malone.
Thank you so much. So again, my name is Bopa Malone, and thank you so much, UTEC, for what you do and how you just did it, allowing these young people to be leaders and leading. That's such a wonderful example, and I truly appreciate you. And just like you, if it wasn't for organizations like UTEC and Girls Inc., I wouldn't be where I am today. I was able to achieve my American dream because of great role models, great mentors, great organizations that helped and guide me to get me to where I am. And that's why I'm running for Congress. I'm running to ensure that everyone has the freedom to achieve their American dream just like I did. So I ask for your support and your votes on September 4th, and when I get it, I promise to make you proud. Thank you very much for being here tonight, and I truly appreciate you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Juana Matias. I'm currently a state representative for the 16th Essex District, the city of Lawrence. I want to thank UTEC for convening us tonight. I've been an admirer of their work. I've seen UTEC workers come to the State House, advocate, and do an incredible job to ensure that Massachusetts is leading and making sure that our youth have the opportunities they need to succeed. My story is the story of the immigrant. I came here at the age of 5 in 1992 from the Dominican Republic, and I saw both of my parents sacrifice everything in order for me to have better opportunities. I was able to attend UMass Boston and then law school, and every opportunity I've had, I've dedicated my career to this district. First as a social worker for a nonprofit agency called Children's Services of Roxbury here in Lowell, Lawrence, and Haverhill, and then as a legal advocate defending children under the age of 15 who were facing deportation, doing predominantly asylum work. And then I challenged an anti-choice, anti-LGBTQ incumbent who had been in office for 25 years and became the first Latina immigrant in the Massachusetts State House. If given your vote, I will fight tirelessly on behalf of the constituents of the 3rd District. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Mike Mullen. I'm running as an independent. And the reason I'm doing that is I think our political system today is broken. I think it's too divisive and too tied to special interests. So all the issues we talked about today are important, but I think they all get short shrift because we don't have the focus on those issues. So as I was preparing for this forum, I looked at the values of UTEC, and I think you guys articulate why I'm running even better than I did. You talk about looking at things with a clean slate, having mad love, assuming the good. That's what we need to do as elected officials. If they could apply those values, we'd get so much more done. Another thing I really liked in your value statement was thinking big but chipping away. I think that's really what we need to do. After Sandy Hook, President Obama said we can do better. And I think we lose that. I think we look for perfect solutions. I think we look for just solving it all. Instead, we need to make that iterative progress. We need to make those changes that we can agree on. I think there's a lot we can have consensus on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight. My name's Lori Trahan. I'm a Democrat. I'm running for Congress to be a voice for working class families like the one I grew up right here in Lowell. My dad in the back of the room was a union iron worker, son of Portuguese immigrants. My mom raised in the Franco-American orphanage and in foster care and countless part-time jobs while raising my 3 sisters and me. I went to Lowell Public Schools here while delivering the Lowell Sun. I worked at the Owl Diner while going to Lowell High School, and it was a scholarship that put me on a pathway to college. I understand deeply what it means to be part of a working class family, one that lives paycheck to paycheck. And I know what it takes: good jobs, good quality education, affordable health care, to close the gap between economic anxiety and economic opportunity. After college, Steve Gendron standing in the back of the room, so I have to give him a call out. I got to work here and be of service in the city of Lowell by working for the Spindle City Corps. I humbly ask for your vote, and I'll buy more cutting boards. They're my favorite Christmas gift. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out, folks. My name's Jeff Ballinger, and if I'm your representative, I'm going to be vocal down in Washington. I'll tell you a story about a wind turbine company just down the road in Ayer. They had their technology stolen by their biggest customer, a Chinese company. And in 2011, they went from 900 employees to 200 overnight. Now, just last January, we won the first ever criminal case, intellectual property theft, against a Chinese company. And You would think maybe somebody from the Energy and Commerce Committee would call one of the workers and the CEO and an engineer down to talk about this, because I read it in the Wall Street Journal. There's nothing in the Globe, there's nothing in the Sun. It was a huge victory. Now we have to be more vocal. You know what? Because we weren't, they settled for $57 million, even though the court in January, last January, said the company suffered $800 million damage. Now that's because nobody spoke up. They labored to slip it through.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for what you do for Lowell every day. I'm excited for what you're going to do for Haverhill, because I live in Haverhill and UTEC's coming to Haverhill, and that's great. I'm running because I believe that I can best get things done in Washington for ordinary people. I worked in the intelligence community for 13 years after joining after 9/11. I'm also running because I want to be the voice for the vulnerable. You're looking at someone who, as a transgender woman, has been threatened for being who I am. I've been beaten up for being who I am. I've been discriminated against for being who I am. So I will be a voice for all the vulnerable, wherever you are, whoever you are. And I will be a voice for those that are here, but those that also don't have a UTEC to help them. So I have a very progressive agenda of racial, economic, and social justice. I invite you to look at it at alexandrachandler.com. We take no corporate PAC money. Our median donation is $27. Get involved with our campaign, and let's really transform our politics in our country. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Beej Das. I am running to be your next representative. One of the reasons I'm running is I listen very well. This experience has been such an amazing pleasure for me, because I've gotten to know all of you and your values and your views over the last year or so in a way that nobody who hasn't gone through the process that we've all gone through can really see. If you truly listen to the voices of this district, you will understand that this is an incredibly diverse district. It will take an incredibly diverse individual to represent that district. I am a constitutional lawyer, own a small business, have 75 employees, pay payroll every week, pay health care. When my company shut down for 6 months, I paid salaries and health care for that entire period. Compare that to National Grid that locks out its employees. I am a champion of the working class. I am from Lowell, and I intend to serve you very well if on the 4th I get your support. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, and thanks to UTEC. Well, I came here several months back and was just so overwhelmed and inspired by the work Greg and all of you guys do every single day. You all are rock stars, truly, truly, truly. And tonight has been nothing exactly what we expect. So, my name is Rufus Gifford. I live down the road in Concord with my husband. I had the great privilege of working for President Barack Obama for 10 years. And the last 4, I was the United States ambassador to Denmark. After Donald Trump was elected president of the United States, I felt compelled to come home and throw my hat in the ring, step up my level of service, and run for office. Since then, I've hit the road, gone diner to diner, coffee shop to coffee shop, in every single one of the 37 cities and towns in this district, listened, asked questions, tried to understand what made every single community in this remarkable district tick. And that's what matters. And what I've learned on the doors, what I've learned from those conversations, is that we got to stand for something. This election's 20 days away, and I humbly ask for your support. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Len Golder. I grew up in Chelsea in the Gateway community, and a lot of my life's work has been in human services as a social worker, a public defense attorney. So I have an understanding of the human services system, what needs to be fixed, and what can be improved, and programs like UTEC are a great example. I just want to make one quick comment about, not Trump, but his lawyer, Rudolph Giuliani, because he made a comment about his philosophy on how you build a community when he was mayor of New York. And what he said was, you fix broken windows. That way, somehow, everything gets improved and looks great. Well, my idea is, you don't fix broken windows, you focus on fixing people's lives. You improve their lives, and if they are broken, you fix those problems. Not the windows, but the people. And if I'm elected to Congress, Those are the kinds of programs I want to focus on to help improve people's lives, and I'm not worried about the windows.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Dan Coe, and my family comes from 2 different parts of the world, Lebanon and Korea, to this district, and live the American dream. I'm running because that American dream story is under attack, and in order to get all of the amazing things done that we talked about tonight, we need someone who's going to stand up to this president and fight for the values we believe in. So instead of taking away health care from 23 million Americans, let's be proud to say that we need a single-payer system in this country once and for all. Instead of a tax cut to the 1% and corporations that don't need it, let's increase money to the Social Innovation Fund that gave an amazing grant to UTEC. And instead of discriminating with a racist travel ban, let's open up and make sure that we are welcoming our immigrants to this country. Let's make sure that we have a pathway to citizenship. And instead of these cuts that we are seeing at the federal level to education, let's double down and have the best public education system this world has ever seen. That is what this campaign is all about, fighting for what makes America truly great. I humbly ask for your vote on September 4th. Thank you.
Well, and last but not least, I'm Barbara L'Italian, and my campaign theme is that I'm a mom on a mission. Why, you might ask? I have a son with autism, and when he was little, he struggled mightily, and I had to help him navigate healthcare, education, and having, friends. What started as his mission to get him on a good path, I turned to the legislature 16 years ago. I first ran for the House. These are all wonderful people here. Everyone has great ideas. I am the only one who over the last 15 years has served in the House, in the Senate. I'm endorsed on the single payer issue. I have worked on civil rights, gay marriage. I got kicked out of my church over standing up to do the right thing. I've stood tall and spoken truth to power on the Trump administration and the border policies. And I'll end with a story about a young man named Eddie in Lawrence who had been criminally involved, worked at Youth Build. I mentored him. We brought him in. He interned and worked in my office. He is now working at Family Services. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Hello. Thank you, everybody. Can we please give one last round of applause for all of our candidates? All right, tonight has been a great event, and on behalf of all the MCs, we'd like to thank you all for coming out. And thank you again to our partners at LTC for filming. And also, could we give a huge thanks to DJ Lefty?
Well, tonight is actually the deadline to register to vote on the September 4th primary. We have voter registration in the back, in the room, and we need one last minute. For everyone else, don't forget to vote on September 4th. Thank you and have a good night.